Hello, fight fans. Thanks for joining us at MMA Insider. Before we get rolling with today's news, show some love by hitting that like button and subscribing. Now let's uncover the latest happenings in MMA. Starting off, Ilia Topuria warns Islam Makhachev ahead of possible light heavyweight move. Moving on, Alex Pereira fuels future heavyweight move in chilling social media post. Lastly, Strickland brutally slams Khamzat Chimaev for ties to terrorist dictators. Tensions are boiling between UFC champions Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev ahead of Topuria's first featherweight title defense. Ilia will face BMF title holder Max Holloway in the UFC 308 main event later this month in Abu Dhabi. He returns to the octagon after finishing Alexander Volkanovski at UFC 298 to capture the UFC featherweight title. While Ilia prepares for his first featherweight title defense, he's remained vocal about possibly moving up to lightweight to face Makhachev. He's offered to pay for Makhachev's medical bills, which Makhachev scoffed at in a recent interview. After Makhachev warned Ilia not to cross personal lines, Ilia doubled down on his two-division championship ambitions. In a recent tweet, Ilia responded to Makhachev's remarks. "I don't need to cross lines, but it seems like the kids that hang out with you will try to cross a line they can't come back from. Let's leave the kids out of it and settle it like adults inside the octagon." 2025 Topuria is undefeated in his professional MMA career with recent wins over Bryce Mitchell, Josh Emmett, and Volkanovski. His upcoming clash with Holloway is one of the year's biggest fights. Makhachev envisions a return in 2025 after defeating Dustin in his previous fight at UFC 302. A hand injury has indefinitely postponed his desired comeback to the cage. Makhachev captured the then-vacant UFC lightweight title by finishing Charles Oliveira at UFC 280. Since then, he's successfully defended the title twice against Volkanovski and once against Dustin. If Topuria opts to move up to lightweight, there are many intriguing fights to choose from. One is a possible clash with Paddy Pimblett after their altercation at the UFC Fighter Hotel in London a few years ago. UFC light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira took to social media to further allude to a quest to become a three-division UFC title holder. Pereira rallied late to knock out Khalil Rountree Jr. in the UFC 307 main event last Saturday in Salt Lake City. He successfully defended the UFC light heavyweight title 3 times in just 7 months. In addition to his light heavyweight title reign, Pereira envisions at least one heavyweight appearance before hanging up the gloves. Potential super fights with Tom Aspinall and John Jones have been tossed around by fans and pundits this year. Pereira seemed to confirm his lingering interest in moving up to heavyweight in a recent social media post. In a recent Instagram post, Pereira reshared the viral photo of Aspinall staring him down at UFC 300. "This is one of my favorite moments before a fight." It didn't take long for Aspinall to acknowledge Pereira's post. Aspinall will likely face the John Jones vs. Stipe winner after UFC 309 next month, but it's uncertain if the winner will stick around for a clash with Aspinall, as both fighters have hinted at retirement. If that's the case, Aspinall vs. Pereira could make sense for the lineal UFC heavyweight championship. Aspinall defended the interim belt by finishing Curtis Blades at UFC 304. There seems to be mutual respect between Pereira and Aspinall ahead of their potential super fight. Aspinall praised Pereira's light heavyweight run in numerous interviews and even confirmed his interest in making the fight happen. Former UFC middleweight champion Strickland isn't a fan of Khamzat Chimaev. Strickland has been out of the cage since his June return at UFC 302. In the co-main event, Strickland faced fellow striker Paulo Costa in his first bout since losing middleweight gold in January. There, the former champion outstruck Costa en route to a split decision victory. With the win, he seemingly secured another title fight. As of now, Strickland remains unbooked. However, the former UFC middleweight champion has been linked to a rematch with Dricus for next year. In the meantime, the striker seemingly has a lot of time on his hands. That extra time has led Strickland to release a lengthy rant about Khamzat Chimaev on social media. On Instagram, the former UFC middleweight champion utterly slammed Khamzat. Strickland wrote that Khamzat Chimaev shouldn't even be allowed to be in America due to his ties to terrorists. While the striker didn't mention who he was referring to, it's likely Sean is alluding to the Chechen's ties to Ramzan Kadyrov. In a follow-up post, Strickland slammed Khamzat Chimaev for his alleged crypto scam earlier this year. As of now, the undefeated middleweight hasn't responded to the former champion's comments on social media. However, it is likely Chimaev will respond sooner rather than later, as he's previously slammed Strickland. As of now, the wrestler is expected to make his return to the cage at UFC 308 later this month. In the co-main event, Khamzat Chimaev is expected to clash with former middleweight champion Robert Whittaker. The bout will be the Chechen's first first 5-round appearance in the octagon. UFC star Kamaru Usman believes Alex Pereira is the #1 male pound-for-pound fighter in the promotion right now. Last weekend, the legend of Alex Pereira grew even further. He knocked out Khalil Rountree Jr. to retain his UFC light heavyweight championship, taking him to 3-0 for the year in the promotion. As you can imagine, there's been a great deal of praise for the Brazilian in the immediate aftermath of his win. In fact, some even believe he has earned the right to be called the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC. During a recent episode of his podcast, Kamaru Usman weighed in and actually agreed with that idea. I think he is pound-for-pound king because of the way he's able to fight. Not the way he's able to fight, but the way he's able to make his opponents fight and the way he's able to dispose of his opponents. I love Islam and his abilities. I think Islam, of course, has more tools in the shed, but for what you have to work with, Alex Pereira, I believe he's the pound-for-pound. I can't be biased to the standard that I'm held to. The standard that Islam is held to, because there's a lot more men that weigh Islam's size and my size than they do Alex Pereira's size. So with what Alex Pereira has to work with, he's disposing of these guys that way, so I have to give that to him. Former 2-division UFC champion Conor McGregor's big gamble on the UFC 307 main event between Alex Pereira and Khalil Rountree Jr. paid off handsomely. Pereira defeated the surging Rountree in the UFC 307 headliner last Saturday in Salt Lake City. It was the third successful defense of the UFC light heavyweight title in 2024, and his third victory in just 7 months. After an up-and-down first few rounds of action, Pereira poured it on the championship rounds. In round 4, Pereira overwhelmed a battered Rountree to earn a TKO victory and retain the belt. McGregor, who isn't a stranger to jaw-dropping moments and finishes, predicted Pereira versus Rountree would end in a knockout. The prediction resulted in a $200,000 profit after putting down a $1 million wager. In a recent tweet, McGregor showed off his winning wager. "If you don't take risks, you won't drink champagne." After Pereira defended the belt, McGregor posted a live reaction to social media, imploring the 205 pounds champ to move up to heavyweight. McGregor was supposed to headline UFC 303 in his octagon comeback against Michael Chandler, but he withdrew from the event due to injury, and Pereira swooped in to save the card and take a short-notice title defense. Pereira earned the then-vacant UFC light heavyweight belt by defeating Yuri Prochazka at UFC 295. He knocked out Jamal Hill at UFC 300 before finishing Prochazka for the second time in their short-notice booking. McGregor is planning a UFC comeback in 2025. Meanwhile, Pereira will look ahead to another light heavyweight title defense, likely against the Magomed Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic winner. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. Your dedication and support fuel our passion to bring you the latest and greatest in the MMA world. If you enjoyed today's news, please give us a thumbs up and share it with fellow MMA fans. Remember to subscribe to stay in the loop with daily MMA updates. We've got a lot of exciting news, interviews, and analysis coming your way every single day. Your engagement helps us grow and serve the MMA community even better. Once again, thank you for being an integral part of our daily MMA journey.